Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome everybody to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, June 6, 2023. Madam Clerk, we have all 5 commissioners in attendance, our county finance officer, our county attorney, and our county manager. I would remind everyone to please silence their mobile devices, and I would ask all speakers that come to the lectern before speaking, making sure that they activate the microphone up front for the YouTube recording. Gentlemen, at this point is approval of the agenda as amended, and as you can see, we are asking for consent item number 5 to remove that item and add decision items 2 and 3 as well as a closed session. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. All right, that brings us to presentations. Item number 1 under presentations, Animal Services Pet of the Month. And this will be Kay Drawn, substituting for our Animal Services Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. I am no substitute for the great Caitlin Settlemeyer, but I'll do my best. She is back from a much-deserved vacation, and Tuesdays are a very busy day at the animal shelter. They will be here at your regular meeting to present a cat and dog in need of its forever home at your regular meeting.
Gentlemen, comments, questions? Just one, I do want you to speak about your event, because I'll ask Caitlin again to reiterate it during the regular meeting. But I hear it was a rousing success. My wife went and took some friends. We were happy to sponsor it. So
yes, and thank you to you and all our sponsors. The Wolfstock event was a great success. We raised about almost $8,000, and the Strut Your Mutt event at Valdez Lakeside Park on Saturday was also a huge success. So it was a busy weekend in the animal welfare service world.
no rest for the weary.
Yeah, big fun though. It was fun.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, any comments? There being none, thank you.
Thank you.
Without objection, gentlemen, this item will remain on the agenda. This will bring us to recognition of North Carolina Governor Volunteer Award winners, and this will be presented by our good friend Paige Pitts, Volunteer Services Coordinator, Division of State Operated Healthcare Facilities, North Carolina DHHS. It's a mouthful. Or we'll have Brownie Rocher. We'll take our pick. And I hope Alicia is feeling well.
Yes.
You can hit the...
Okay, it said press to speak, so. Okay, Alicia is sick and Paige has laryngitis, so I'm going to present. I'm Brownie Rochford. I'm with the Burke Literacy Council. And what we would like to do is to ask permission to be on the agenda for the June 20th meeting of the County Commissioners to present our Governor's Service Award winners. This past year we had four volunteers that won awards from the governors, and I think we've been here before. And we also have one medallion award winner, which is 1 out of 20 in the state. So that's a special person that we would like to present. And we would like to share them and introduce them to the people, to the commissioners, and also the people that will be present on June 20th.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, questions, comments? Thank you very much. Paige, I hope your voice gets better soon. Gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. That brings us to presentations. Scheduled public hearings. This will be presented by our county manager. Adoption of FY 2023-2024 budget and public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you recall, at our last regular meeting in May, the full budget for FY24 was presented, and a public hearing was scheduled at that time. Since that point, our budget message and budget document has been available for public inspection, and that will remain available through the 20th of June. So at our upcoming meeting, we'll ask to hold that public hearing. I'll be prepared to do more of an executive summary of the budget, not the full presentation, but some highlights, and certainly happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Brian?
I don't have an objection, but where are those documents located again, where they can go and look at the
So
budget?
they're available at our seniors centers, the libraries, and on our county website.
Okay. And I want to ask you something, and probably you too. I would like to explore the possibility of looking at a public referendum to raise our state or sales tax here in, not state, but the sales tax in the county. Have you done that and looked at what it would be if we stayed revenue neutral? Would we make enough money on a sales tax increase so we could spread the enjoyment of providing services to a lot of the other population members and our visitors we have coming in? They say Burke County's really bringing in the tourists and all that. They could help us pay for some of this, maybe.
So I think the question is, and we've talked about it several times, an additional sales tax. The one that is yet to be levied in Burke County, that's in approximately half the counties in the state, is Article 46. It's an additional 1/4%. I believe that would generate somewhere between $2.5–3 million annually when applied at scale. And if the question is, would a revenue neutral 52-cent tax rate plus a Article 46 implementation sales tax fully fund the budget, I think that comes up a little short. A penny on the tax rate's about $1 million. And so 56 cent, which is the budget as presented, was neutral plus 4. If you supplanted the sales tax, that would get you a little more than halfway there. Not quite all the way there, so there would still have to be some decisions made. But your point about a consumption-based tax, equitably spreading that across all consumers, not just property owners, I think all of those are accurate points. And that's something that I know the board's talked about off and on over the budget season. I'd remind you that does have to be approved via majority vote, via referendum when all the precincts are open. And I think that's something that the board can talk about as you, continue to develop your strategic plan and consider your budget priorities.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
And I know Commissioner Burns has brought this up several times, and that may be something that we look at. The problem is it's not a near-term solution.
That's
Those
right.
projects that we want to do, because it does take time to get the referendum on and do those things, and we all have to agree to do it. So, it's something definitely to look at longer term, but at this point, it wouldn't help for this fiscal year. Correct.
That's right. After the earliest that the community could consider it would be a spring primary 24, and essentially before that begins to be collected and redistributed is another 12 months. So you're looking
2 years.
18, 19 months before you see those dividends.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good question, though. Any other questions, comments, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know where it's at in the legislature right now, but there was a bill introduced in the Senate to allow that quarter to go to
Half. You're exactly right.
So we may be better off waiting to get that on a referendum so we can make a judgment between that, and it might get us closer to where Mr. Smith's talking.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? All right, there being none. Thank you, Mr. Epley. Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda under scheduled public hearings. This will bring us to item number 5, consent agenda. Item number 1 under consent agenda, WBPCOG Area Agency on Aging Home and Community Care Block Grant FY 2023-2024, presented by Tina Miller, COG Director of Area Agency on Aging. It's a mouthful.
It is.
How
it
are
is.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. Just wanted to go over the information for the Home and Community Care Block Grant, which are funding that we received from the federal and state government to do services for older adults who are age 60 and better. These are Burke County funds that you appoint the Burke County Council on Aging, working with our agency at the Western Piedmont Council of Governments to make recommendations to the commissioners as to the use of these funds. The recommendations are in your packet on behalf of the Burke County Council on Aging for the fiscal year 24. The funds that we received for the Home and Community Care Block Grant are $665,401. This is an increase of $4,925 from last year, or our current year allocations. The recommendations that are presented by the Council on Aging are for all of the services to remain the same with the same service providers with the same budget, except for the increase was given to Burke Senior Services for home delivered meals. That was the greatest need, and the committee felt like that was the best use of the increase of where it should be applied. So I'm asking for you to approve the Home and Community Care Block Grant funding allocations as recommended by the Burke County Council on Aging, and approve the Home and Community Care Block Grant Agreement between Burke County and the Western Piedmont Council of Governments Area Agency on Aging for fiscal year 23-24, subject to review and revision by the county attorney. Further authorize the chairman to execute the aforementioned documents. Questions for me?
Thank you, Tina. Questions, comments? Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to item number 2. Clerk to the board, Kay Drone, resolution amending the 2023 meeting schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The resolution in your agenda packet cancels the July pre-agenda meeting scheduled for July 5th and cancels the August pre-agenda meeting that was scheduled for August 1st. As for the public's benefit, folks are going to be at conferences and trainings, and those scheduling conflicts necessitated the cancellation of these meetings.
And y'all would actually like to be able to squeeze vacation in as well.
That too.
Doesn't hurt. Gentlemen, questions, comments for Kay? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 3, Kay, appointment to the Burke County Board of Adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to remove Robert Love's name from the official roster for the Burke County Board of Adjustment and thank him for his service to the community. He has served on this board for quite a few years, but is moving on in a different direction in his life, and so we're asking you to appoint Ray Johnson to take his seat number 3, a west seat, to complete the remainder of a term ending September 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, comments, gentlemen? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, that'll bring us to item number 4, reappointment to the DSS Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Nancy Wood to the Board of Social Services, seat number 1 at large for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026. I am told that she is a very good member.
Gentlemen, questions for Madam Clerk? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Gentlemen, we've removed item number 5, and we will move on to item number 6. Madam Clerk, appointments / removals to JCPC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have an addendum at your seat for the JCPC item. We've revised that item, excuse me, since the original agenda went out. We have added one more seat to it while we were getting them. We wanted to get them all, and we've had all the applications come in now. So this is a request to reappoint the following members to the JCPC board for 2-year terms ending June 30th, 2025. Captain Bowman, seat 2. Sheriff Hinsman, seat 3. Ron Abernathy, seat 5. Corey Fisher-Wellman, seat 7. Jennifer Forney, seat 8. Jasper Hemphill, seat 10. Damian Patton, seat 16. Tammy Miller, seat 17. Stephen Moody, seat 20. Nikki Carpenter, seat 22. And Kami Irvin, seat 23. We're also requesting that you remove Katie Bonado's name from the roster and thank her for her service to the community, and appoint Paul Holden in her stead to seat number 6 to complete the remainder of a 2-year term ending June 30th, 2024, and to appoint Sarah Christ, seat number 18, representing the nonprofit or United Way, to complete the remainder of a term ending June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, is there any need to waive residence? I noticed several of these are not county residents. Any need to waive those?
Yes, and I will add that too, that I was thinking about that as we were going along. But yes, we'll add a request to waive the residency provision to that item. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, any other questions, comments? All right. There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll move us to item number 7, reappointment and removal to Partners Health Management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to reappoint Barry Nelson to Partners Health Management's Consumer Family Advisory Committee, representing category number 13 of section 122C-181.1, administrator of a hospital providing mental health, intellectual and disability, IDD, and substance use emergency services for a 3-year term ending July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2026. We are asking that you remove Ms. McCrae's name from the Partners CFAC roster and thank her for her service to the community. Surrey County is actually going to fill that category this time around, so it's not actually a Burke County seat. It's only our seat if they reside in our county. And then we are reappointing Commissioner Britton to the Partners Health Management Board of Directors to complete a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026, effective July 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gentlemen, questions, comments? Then without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to item number 8 on the consent agenda, reappointments to the Regional Aging Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to reappoint Mary Wright, seat 1, Paige Pitts, seat number 2, and Stephanie Berry, seat number 4, to the Regional Aging Advisory Committees or Council for 2-year terms ending June 30th, 2025. We did receive an application from a Jennifer Francis, but because all these members have prior experience, we are recommending their reappointment. If you would like that changed, please let me know. I'd be happy to modify that item.
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
And Ms. Miller is here and could speak to that issue if necessary.
Anything? Then without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That will bring us to item number 9, appointments to the Western Piedmont Community College Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to remove Bill Lennon's name from the official roster for the Western Piedmont Community College Board of Trustees and thank him for his service to the community. He has or will have applied to serve on this board through the Burke County Public School System, and our request is to appoint Chairman Mulvey to take his seat, seat number 3, for a 4-year term ending June 30th, 2027.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Questions, comments? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, that'll bring us to item number 10, finance reappointment of tax administrator, and I will call Margaret Pierce, our finance director, up front, please.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. We are requesting, John Bridgers has currently served as the county's tax administrator. His term expires the end of this month. He was appointed to complete Danny Eisenhower's term upon his retirement, and we would request that you reappoint him to the position for a 4-year term.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Margaret. That'll bring us to item number 11, general services, approval of water shortage response plan. This will be presented by our all-star basketball player, Brian Tart, Assistant Director in General Services.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board, members of the board. Mark Delahan is on vacation, so I have to take his place, so give me some grace. So our first agenda item for general services is the water shortage response plan. This response plan is required by the DEQ and to respond to a drought or any other water shortages. This plan is reviewed annually. It's required a new resolution every 3 years. That is approved by a government body of the county commissioners. Burke County is on a purchased water system. So when there is a water shortage, whichever system we are purchasing through, whatever stage or level they're at, that's what we will follow. If Morgan's on a level 5, we will be on a level 5. So that's how we go ahead and see what level we will be on. So that's just approval for the water shortage response plan.
Okay, gentlemen, questions, comments for Brian? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to the next item. Brian will take care of that. General Services HVAC project, Foothills Higher Education Building.
Okay, that item, agenda item, that's the HVAC project for the Foothills Higher Education System. In 2023, we have 33 rooftop units at the Foothills building. In 23 budget, we had 11 rooftop units that you, Board of Commissioners, approved. Since that project was bid, we had 2 more units that we discovered need to be replaced also. So those are these 2 units that need to be approved. Due to this cost being over $90,000, this project needs to be approved by the governing body, the commissioners.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Brian? Then without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
That'll bring us to item number 13, Tax Department Release Refund Report for May 2023, and this will be presented by our friend John Bridgers.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the month of May, report total there is $2,896.94. Of that, we rebilled $333.21, a net release of $2,563.78. We refunded no money, and there was no VTS, which is Vehicle Tax System, no refunds for over $100 for that.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for John? Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Bring us to item number 14, Tax Collection Report for May 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the fiscal year from July 1, 2022 through May 31 of 2023, we have collected, I'm proud to say, 102.97% of our budgeted property tax of $45,800,000, for exactly being $47,158,856.13. So that is $1,358,856.13 over the budget amount. Motor vehicle tax, we had budgeted $6 million. To date, we have collected $5,505,032.04. That is 91.75% of the budget amount, leaving $494,967.96 to be collected. The current year taxes, budget amount of $51,800,000. We have collected 101.67% of that, exactly being $52,663,888.17. So that is $863,888.17 over budget. Delinquent taxes, we have collected $674,112.95. That is 96.30% of the budget amount, leaving us a balance to collect of $25,887.05. For the late list penalty, we had budgeted $315,000, and we have collected $348,698.56. That's 110.7% over what we budgeted for over amount of $33,698.56. For the tax levy, the levy changes every month based on discoveries and releases and such. So the tax levy is $47,900,655.52. We have collected $47,158,856.45. So that is 98.45% we've collected on a balance to collect of $741,799.39.
Thank you, John. Questions, comments? John, just one brief explanation for those that may not be familiar with this. There's a great numbers, obviously, but property tax at 103%, how does that happen? So if you can give a brief explanation to that for folks listening.
Well, we budgeted that we would collect $45 million, and some of that is prior year taxes comes in there, discoveries comes in there. If we find that someone has not listed their property, such as a boat or business personal property, and we find out about it, then we can discover that and tax them for that. And so that adds to that total that we collected.
Makes sense. I just wanted you to, just for clarity, so, some people ask us, how do you collect more than what you thought you were going to get? So, great job. Gentlemen, questions, comments? All right. There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, John. That'll bring us to item number 6, items for decision. Item number 1 under items for decision, appointment to the jury commission. This will be presented by Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mr. Robert Love was appointed to the jury commission, seat number 1, in September of 2007. He has served for almost 16 consecutive years. His service is definitely praiseworthy. We have received applications from Terry Yunt and Jennifer Francis, and we might receive another one. We'll see by June 20th. But this is a request to remove his name from the roster and thank him for his service to the community, and then to appoint one of the applicants that we have for that seat to complete the remainder of a term ending September 30th, 2023. I would also, if you are okay with it, because of his 16 years of service on the jury commission, as well as service on the planning board going back many years, as well as the Board of Adjustment, I would like to send him a county walking stick on your behalf in appreciation for his service.
Absolutely. I think that's the minimum we could do. So,
I'd be happy to do it.
fantastic. Gentlemen, questions, comments for Kay? Thank you, Madam Clerk. And without objection, this item will remain on items for decision. And then that brings us to item number 2 under items for decision, approval of year-end budget amendment. This is presented by our county manager, Mr. Epley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, included in your packet are 2 documents, one outlining what I would define as a year-end budget closeout amendment, as well as adoption and amendment to an existing ordinance. The reason this is required, other than annual typical budget closeout, this being the final period in our fiscal year, It's also to initiate the financings that we've covered as part of your capital improvement plan, in which we are leveraging the spend plan in your CIP document and ARPA to position those funds to begin to advance those capital projects. So both of those are included. The ordinance amendment is because some of those dollars are ARPA monies, and an ordinance is required to be in compliance with the U.S. Treasury guidance. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? Mr. Epley? All right, without objection, this item will remain under items for decision. Item number 3, selection of vendor for employee pay and classification study. Once again, this is presented by our friend, Mr. Epley.
Thank you. A very brief summary. Our goal is to bring a qualified firm for recommendation at your June 20th meeting. We have solicited an RFP. Simply, this is a professional service, but as we've discussed many times, beginning all the way back at March 2nd, March 3rd at your strategic planning work session, because of lagging salaries that's created high turnover, we wanted to take a very aggressive swing at getting market-based wages. But that really starts with more than just a market analysis. It starts with a comprehensive review of job descriptions, of paying class systems. Our classification system and grading system is also in need of a tune-up. So we've posted this competitive bidding document. We've had 4 submissions from qualified firms. Our executive leadership team, many of those members are here today, have reviewed those over the last couple of weeks. We are scheduled to begin interviewing firms this week, and we think we'll be prepared to make a recommendation on a firm by June the 20th. I would point out that all of the submissions were under the budgeted amount, so there is no additional anticipated budget impact. Happy to answer any questions you may have on this process.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Mr. Epley? All right, without objection, this item will remain under items for decision. At this point, gentlemen, reports, would remind everyone to submit your reports to the clerk ASAP for inclusion for the agenda packet. Just some friendly reminders, don't litter. We always say pick up trash, please cover your loads at the convenience centers and landfill. As Kay always mentions, adopt or foster a pet away from the animal services. Please spay or neuter your pets. There will be a low-cost rabies clinic June 10th, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Bell Farms in Morganton. $10 each for vaccination. No cats, please, for their safety. Vouchers may be purchased at the event and redeemed at Animal Services later. And then obviously we have our June 20th regular meeting at 6 p.m. So gentlemen, this brings us to item number 8, other discussion items. There is one item under this, report on selection of architect for new animal shelter and EMS station base 1. This is once again presented by our county manager, Mr. Epley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Similar to the previous item, the last 2 previous items, we are prepared over the next 60 days to recommend the next steps in a qualified firm to help join our team for the construction of a new animal services building as well as an EMS building. So what I wanted to do today is give you more of an update of now that we've began the transactional mechanics of funding the capital improvement plan that this board approved back in April. I thought I would talk to you about what's happened since that point when you all adopted that 5-year capital improvement plan, specific with the next steps with those 2 buildings. They've all began to move forward. We have recently assembled a multitude of what I call operational subcommittee teams that have begun talking about many parts of your strategic plan, but specifically there's a building and ground subcommittee that will be the core of managing this plan, and then on a project by project basis bring in other members of the team to make sure that we're considering all the necessary components and items. But today, ahead of what we think would be a next step in August, I wanted to kind of tell you how your plan is advancing. So I want to briefly circle back to the projects that we're talking about. For the two that are the point of emphasis today, which is the Animal Services Building and the EMS Base 1, talk through the procurement model that we've recommended and selected, as well as the process, and then briefly walk through what we see as the timeline. So inside of your 5-year plan, we were able to compartmentalize projects, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Obviously, what I'm talking about more in detail today are these two midterm projects, but I would point out that Jonas Ridge Phase 1 is well underway. We're looking at a late fall completion on that project. The East Burke collection site, again, this board's approved the project ordinance, and that project really has a site plan and is advancing. The pump station, Indian Hills the courthouse improvements are projects that our building and grounds team have begun to really formalize. No meaningful movement at this point, but they're on the tip of the spear. Over on the midterm side, we have been working with our friends in Raleigh on the Regional Rehabilitation Center, and our Health and Human Services Building is also a project that is probably 2 to 3 months behind where we are with Animal Services and the EMS base. Really what's different about that building is the size and the scope. And before we start talking about really the selection and the construction process, I think we have to go through a planning space needs assessment, which is going to be the kind of the kickoff to that project. So the fact that we're talking about these, please don't see that as a under prioritization of any of the other ones. They're all moving. Just the size and the scope, the fact that we already have land, the fact that we already kind of have an idea of the conceptual layout of those two, just allow them to move a little quicker. So in North Carolina, the erection and construction of buildings is heavily regulated through General Statute 143, specifically subsection 128. And quickly, you can see that there is 8 approved construction methods that a local government may use. I won't go through every single one of those, but likely as we advance your capital improvement plan, several of these models will be used. I think things that we have to consider is the size of the building, the complexity of the building, what financing options are being leveraged to move that forward. But for these two particular, Animal Services and EMS, both, although they sound very different, both have a lot of similarities in the construction methodology. Both are heavily administrative in nature. And we've, after really kind of dissecting what the need is, believe this concept of single prime bidding makes the most sense. And everybody, that sounds like a very technical term, but in reality, that's the methodology that most people are familiar with, and it's a low hard bid. So we, if you look at the bottom of the slide here, what that means is that the first step is to select a qualified design and engineering team. Once we have those folks on board, we would do a conceptual site plan along with any site due diligence and civil work. Then they would help us develop our construction packages and permitting to take to bid. And at that point, we would onboard a construction team and work through construction, but the selection of that team would be made based on the lowest qualified responsible bid. And with some of the other management procurement methodologies, that process and that sequence is a little bit different. And really, after talking through this, we've posted this RFQ, request for qualifications, which is how we would select the design engineering component of our team in a joint way. And again, you may think that it is unusual to have a public animal services building being paired and designed with a public safety base like an EMS station, but really the similarities in the construction type are very similar. And as we talk through running the projects on a parallel track, similar timeline, we think that'll really allow us to take advantage of raw material acquisition, ordering things like structural steel, roofing material, HVAC mechanical, and really taking advantage from an economies of scale of procuring those supplies at a simultaneous time. We did not prohibit, and we likely expect that a qualified firm that submits an RFQ proposal may have an auxiliary team as part of theirs, meaning someone who has a lot of experience in public safety design and project management in North Carolina may go out and find kind of a subcontractor design firm that has experience in municipal animal services, or vice versa. So we likely could get, subject matter expertise in both components, but under one kind of submission. And there's really a lot of economies of scale, not only in the material acquisition, but we think once we get into the design phase and the construction phase, that'll allow for one-time mobilization, that'll allow for one superintendent. The sites are very close to each other. And so it's just a way to facilitate potentially a lower price point for these buildings to be erected. Our goal is to bring the submissions are due back here later this month, and we will take about 2 to 3 weeks to interview some of these firms, put together a recommendation for this board to consider, and come back to this board at your August meeting with a recommended team. And then our next milestone following that would be to have structural design and bidding documents by January, February 2024, ready to go to market. Here's the concept of that dual bidding process. In this example, I've presumed we had 5 construction contractors, and you can see in this example, Company D, Contractor D, was only bid on the animal shelter. Company B and C only bid on the EMS project, but Company A and E bid on both. And we'll be able to see, are we creating savings? So for example, if Contractor D said, I can build the animal shelter for $5.5 million, and Company B said, I can build the EMS station for $8 million, that's a $13.5 million total cost. But A may say, I can do both for 12 because one superintendent, one mobilization fee, being able to order 2 sets of steel, structural steel packages, roofing packages, those type things. And the differences, again, between the buildings, when you start looking structurally and componently, are actually pretty minute. A little bit of upgraded HVAC and plumbing and flooring in the animal services building, and some really pretty standard administrative focus on the EMS base with open bays and those type of things. But we think this is a really strategic opportunity to get both projects done on a parallel track at a similar time frame, as well as do it at the most efficient and lowest cost. So from a schedule perspective, again, we hope to be able to award this design engineering RFQ in August, followed by design development phase to conclude in early 2024, going through the bidding process, and hopefully substantial completion in Q1 2025. Again, this schedule, and we think that we can give a more robust update on some of your other projects in the coming months at these meetings, but they're not far behind. Again, please don't hear this as a under prioritization. These projects just move quicker because of their size, scope, complexity, and the fact that they can be ran jointly. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, just one point. Going back to the methods, the state methods. So the single prime building,
Bidding, yes.
bidding, how does that differ from design build?
So design build essentially means that you hire a contractor based on qualifications. You tell them essentially what you need and what you can spend, and they hire their own design team. So, in that situation, we would say, we want to build 2 buildings, we have $13 million, we hire contractor X, they go find their own design team, and essentially it's their project to run. When you have a fixed number, a hard fixed number, that's the more likely way to manage that. A construction manager at risk is typically for much larger, more complicated projects, but essentially that's your hiring a construction consultant. You the county or the customer assumes all the risk of price volatility and all those the contracting risk and so forth. This single prime methodology, the reason that it's the most common, and historically in local government has been the most common by a lot, is because it pushes the risk to the private market. And essentially, you're saying, this is what we want, and you're into a fixed fee. Of recent times, the last couple of years post-COVID, with material costs and labor costs being unpredictable, you have seen at times lack of interest from contractors in this single prime bidding methodology. And when you do see interest, they often come with 20, 25, 30% premiums. So there's been some interest on the public side of saying, as much as we don't want to, we should assume some of that risk because it's going to create such significant savings. But for these projects, $13.5, $14 million, in total, really we believe that there'll be a lot of interest from local vendors and regional vendors at this price point.
Okay, thank you. My experience so far with these projects in other worlds has been in design, build, and construction management at risk. This will be a new one for me. I look forward to learning more about it.
Cool. Jim, any other questions for Mr. Epple? All right, there being none, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, could we go back and look at number 8 on the consent agenda? Which is the reappointments to the Regional Aging Advisory Committee. We actually have 4 candidates for those 3 positions. So shouldn't that come off of the consent agenda and go to the decision agenda?
Double check that, Kay.
Remember, that was the one that I told you we did have that extra applicant, but the recommendation was to reappoint the existing members based on experience, and that if you wanted that done differently, I would be happy to reformat that item to your wishes, and also that Ms. Miller is here and could speak to that issue as well.
So if we want to leave it on consent, we can, JR?
Sir?
I said if we decide to leave it on consent with those suggested appointees, we can?
You can, but you've had somebody who's applied for a
So your recommendation is to move it to items for decision?
right, let everybody have their vote.
Gentlemen, any objection to that? All right, okay, let's move it to items for decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, JR. Well, gentlemen, at this time, there is a need for closed session. And to go into closed session, we'll need a motion pursuant to NCGS 143.318.11A 3, 4, 5, and 6.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. We will go into closed session. We did have a proper motion to come out of closed session, so we're back in open session. During that closed session, there was no action taken. So, gentlemen, at this point, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, thank
Are
you.
you gonna make a motion? I
No,
just want to say something.
no, I'm gonna say something.
Okay.
Not gonna make a motion.
I-
I did want to report that Danny Scalise, our health director, and I will be leaving right after this meeting to go to Durham County for the North Carolina Summit on reducing overdose deaths. Unfortunately, there's been more recorded overdose deaths, but due to substance abuse. So we'll be going down, listening to a number of speakers talking about prevention and harm reduction and treatment and recovery efforts. Two key speakers will be the Reverend Michelle Mathis. I'll have the honor of introducing her, and Dr. Stephen Lloyd, who is renowned for his work in the substance abuse community. Later on, Burke County will have the privilege to have the renowned author Beth Macy here in Burke County, and Danny will be helping us do that. Beth is renowned. Her last book was The Lazarus Project, and and she also wrote Dope Sick, and I think there's a lot of people familiar with the movie that was on Hulu about Dope Sick. This is being handled by NCACC. I'm very proud of the fact that we're trying to address the issue of the overdose deaths. So we will, like I say, we'll be leaving. We'll be back Thursday, and then we look forward to having Beth here in Burke County later on at a later date. So hopefully we'll have some good. There's over 400 people signed up for this meeting at the Durham Convention Center. So I'm looking forward for us being well represented down there. So Danny and I and somebody else from Danny's Ashland is going too. So we look forward to that. Just wanted to mention that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. Thanks for the continued work on that subject, Danny. And like I said, don't forget Ashley back there in the back. So what I would wish you is safe travels down there. You're hitting I-40 at a fun time. So just be careful. Get him back in one piece too, Danny. Commissioner Smith.
I just want to say today is the 79th anniversary of the United States Army storming the beaches at Normandy. We are losing a lot of our World War II veterans by the day, about like crazy, and I just want to thank them for their service. And thank God we had people that were willing to go do that.
Amen.
79 years ago.
Amen, brother.
And happy anniversary to Vice Chairman Jeff Britton. Cynthia said it was the most exciting 40-some years of her lifetime. So
she said they've been married 41, but most of them were good. Gentlemen, anything else? All right, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I enter a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone.